Welcome back. So what was behind the timing of President Obama's call for the Federal Communication Commission to regulate the internet like a public utility? Eamon Javers has been working the phones and that story. Hi, Eamon.
Hi, Kelly. Well, the timing of this announcement definitely raised a few eyebrows here in Washington. A lot of folks wondering why exactly the White House decided to announce this decision as the president was in Beijing, China, for a summit internationally. Looking at this through the prism of White House stagecraft and image making, the White House put out a web video at the same time that they announced this of the president at the White House. A lot of folks saying that they thought that might be political in nature. The White House telling us, no, there's no particular reasoning behind this timing. They just decided that they had to get this out before the FCC made its decision. I asked this question of Michael Powell. He's the former chairman of the FCC. He said he smells some politics in this as well. Of course, he's a Republican. Take a listen.
It seems to me that it was a surprising decision, a sudden one. There's many who have suggested it's part of a strategy in the wake of the midterm elections to fire up the base, to stoke the wishes of the president's constituency.
And this did get very political very quickly after the president's announcement yesterday. You saw Ted Cruz tweeting out that he thinks that this could be something like Obamacare for the internet. Obviously, that's a touchstone on a couple of levels. But this net neutrality issue is very popular with a certain segment of the president's political base. And you might see this as one effort by the White House to go out and tell those folks, hey, you know something, we're on your side still. We're going to do something. The question is, when will any result actually occur here? The FCC not expected to make any final decision until well into 2015, Kelly.
Oh, all right. So there's a little bit of time, Eamon. Thank you. The battle line's clearly drawn on this issue with the consumer firmly in the crosshairs. So what would be the better outcome for the people who pay the bills? Go to CNBC.com/vote and tell us, do you think the internet will be cheaper with more or less regulation? And joining us now is Michael Mandel from the Progressive Policy Institute and consumer advocate John Simpson. Welcome to you both. Michael, I'm curious about your point of view on this one. Is it a good move for the consumer for there to be more regulation of the internet?
Well, let me put this in context first. The internet, the data sector, has been booming. It has been great for the consumer, has been the major driving force for improvements in consumer welfare since the recession. So things are great. It's not like the healthcare sector. It's not broken. We need some more regulation, but the problem is, and you asked the wrong question here, unfortunately, it's not about whether the internet is cheaper or not. It's about whether we get more innovation. And the problem is, if you have too much regulation, you'll end up slowing down the innovation. Obviously, some regulation is needed, and you have to give the FCC a big stick. But what the president has proposed would have the effect of slowing down the boom, basically.
Okay, that's a big deal. John Simpson, is he wrong?
Yes, I think he's completely wrong. I mean, the problem is that the internet has worked so well and been so innovative precisely because we've operated under the concept of net neutrality, where the ISPs don't act as a gatekeeper. All the data essentially goes over and is treated the same way. Many of the larger ISPs want to change that. They want to be able to have pay as you go for priority and favor certain content providers. What Obama has suggested is that we need to have net neutrality rules in place. The only way you can do that is if you reclassify broadband service as a common carrier. Net neutrality rules were thrown out by the court, and so you need this change and reclassification to make it work.
Okay.
The most here. I mean, we understand that businesses want these so-called fast lanes, and that would be a benefit to many. But when talking about innovation and where the next wave of innovation is going to come from, will it come from schools? Will it come from colleges and universities? How will they be impacted? And who's really benefiting the most or losing the most?
Michael?
Absolutely. If we have net neutrality rules,
Michael.
The FCC will be in the business of having to sort of have rate hearings about every innovation. And the problem is that when you have too much government regulation, it will slow down all the innovation for everyone. The rules that we've been operating under have worked really well. We need to sort of give the FCC a big club to sort of penalize bad behavior. But you sort of have regulation ahead of time. You force people to get permission. What do? You get slower innovation. I think this is pretty much inevitable.
Only in this country do we want to create more regulation to protect us from the beast that was created from other regulation. The big issue here is that the ISPs have a monopoly. If anyone really cares about a free internet, then you know what? Do away with the monopolies, deregulate those monopolies, and then we don't have to have this discussion altogether.
I don't follow.
I don't follow that either.
Here's what
well, okay, then let me clarify then. Obviously, we have some ISPs that have a monopoly, and that's what everybody is worried about, the fact that they're going to dictate terms. If there was actually a free market and there was competition, the free market would be able to sort this out. This wouldn't be an issue about the consumer getting left behind because someone would come in to fill that void. We are always putting new regulations on top regulations instead of repealing the stupid regulations that were there to begin with.
John?
The problem is precisely that most of the ISPs function effectively as monopolies in their local market. If you then give them the ability to make a determination over what provider gets through, who has to pay more, it ends up absolutely hurting innovation because small startup companies aren't going to be able to get their data out to customers. It's not about setting rates. You don't have to give the FCC under Section 2 authority to set rates. Nobody wants to do that.
That's what Title II is about.
No, you have a process. You have a process known as forbearance, where you put into play the net neutrality rules, but you're not going to have a rate hearing on how much you're going to charge to have an iPhone.
I want to talk about politics.
As you address this, I also want to draw your attention to our vote right now. We have almost 70% of our viewers saying the internet will be cheaper with more regulation.
When is anything cheaper with more regulation?
Right.
When is anything cheaper?
I'm just telling you what the people are saying, Michael. What were you going to say?
What I'm saying is that forbearance is basically the process of the FCC saying we won't use these powers. The problem is, think about the political situation. They have if you give them the power to regulate rates and any sort of new innovation comes along, then what's going to happen is there'll be a big cry for rate hearings. Of course there will be. This is inevitable. And the people who say that it's not going to happen are speaking nonsense. This is the way that politics works.
I think people hear the term net neutrality and their eyes glaze over. Net neutrality doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people. So what they want to know is, if I have Netflix and I have my internet right now, will I pay more or less for what Obama wants to do? That's what they want to know, and they don't understand.
The question is,
the real question, but that's what consumers want to know.
But that is the real question.
If you allow...
Go ahead.
Yeah. If you allow the ISPs to charge Netflix more for their content to get across in a way that consumers can use it, then that's going to raise the cost of Netflix, and they'll make it up by charging the consumer more.
If there was competition, that wouldn't be the case. And that's the crux of the problem. If there was competition, that wouldn't be the case. And that's why this is a lazy argument. Once again, on the behalf of the American public, we're arguing something. We're not getting to the root of the problem. The root of the problem is that there's a monopoly with the ISPs. Let's address that problem and have some free market competition.
But isn't there, let me put it this way.
You could bring some antitrust law to bear on the ISPs. You certainly could bring antitrust law to bear on the ISPs.
Antitrust law would actually work better than with net neutrality law. Okay?
All right.
Because if you think...
But that's also a form of government regulation.
Okay, well... Yeah, we're going to leave it right there, gentlemen, with a lot to think about. And with, by the way, people still 65 to 36% saying the internet will be cheaper with more regulation. So Carol's shaking her head. Our thanks to Michael Mandel from the Progressive Policy Institute and to John Simpson as well. They protected us from enemies overseas, but what is our government doing to protect our veterans from predatory lenders? It's a big problem, and our next guest is taking aim at solving it. You're not going to want to miss this coming up. Also ahead, luxury home prices are soaring, and Robert Frank is going to explain why and what it means to the rest of the housing market. Stay with us.